Well, I started my hike and I thought I was on the trail because of the way the path kind of looks with the clearing between the trees and everything, and nice and smooth. And I'm already like a quarter mile going the wrong direction because the snow likes to cover stuff. This is kind of going to be my first hike review with the VX6R. I said in my previous video that I was probably going to get the Kenwood, and I decided that I don't need all those fancy features. I just want a radio that does radio, and it does it very well. So with this radio, it's a tri-band, but realistically it's a quad band. If you get the Mars mod, you get 6 meters back, which essentially turns it into a VX7. The only difference is now being that the VX7 is all metal. Some models are titanium powder blended or whatever. I don't think it's pure titanium. It's way too cheap to be all titanium. But yeah, this is basically a VX7 now, quad band radio. So I got an assortment of Smiley antennas with me. This is my 2 meter. I also have a 220 or 222, 70 centimeter, and a GRMS antenna. And they're all quarter wave when they're in the down position, and a loaded 5/8 wave in the up position. On the VNA, they work pretty good, so I'm about to find out. This is also really good, really sensitive at picking up pretty much any frequency that it can touch. Right now I'm listening to, I think, probably like a first responder network, because I'm getting a digital squelch at the end of every message, and they keep saying like need medical on location, blah blah blah. And it's around the 156 megahertz, so it's definitely not a ham band. I shouldn't transmit on it, even though it can with the Mars mod. But yeah, I like it so far. I do have a second battery on the way because I left the wake up feature on overnight and it drained like half the battery because it woke up and it just stays on when it's on wake up. But yeah. Also with the second battery and the charging cradle, I can mess with the radio and I can just have a battery on the cradle at all times. And then when I actually need to leave the house with the radio, I can swap it out and leave the other one charging. So I always have a full battery rather than, oh no, I can't mess around with my radio unless it's on the charger. That way I still have a full battery by the time I want to go hike, because I had to delay my hike by like 2 hours just so the radio could charge. Maybe an hour. I bought the 12-volt charger that I leave on my bike. So then the hour that it takes to get up here, it also got a charge, and it was up to 8.3 volts, which was pretty much full. One last thing in this clip is I forgot to empty my phone. So this is actually the first hiking vlog that I've done that's not ProRes, and I'm probably going to regret it later when editing, because editing on the iMac with Final Cut is pretty easy on most video formats, but rendering it and compressor is such a pain if it's not ProRes. It just takes hours to do. If it's a ProRes video, like whatever the video length is, it just takes 4 times that long. So if it's a 25-minute video or a 15-minute video, it takes an hour to render, and then you're good to go. If it's not ProRes, that 15-minute video usually takes like 4 hours. So yeah, I'm going to try to find the trail and then get to it. The thing I really like about fresh powder hiking is the snow is actually grippy. Like as you step down into it, it compresses and it forms to the shape of your soles. And it makes for a really grippy hike, but it's also very, very confusing because in the beginning I've zigzagged a dozen times going like 10 feet, check my GPS. I'm already off the trail, go the other direction, only like 10 feet, and somehow I end up 20 feet off the trail again. But I'm pretty sure I'm on, well, I know I'm on the path now. I just checked the GPS and it's starting to look more like a trail. The beginning of the trail was just very, very covered in snow and didn't have any flat spots or markers of any sort. Also, new radio placement setup. This is just a cheap radio holster that came with another Chinese radio. I forget which one. I was gonna buy a new one, but this one's like the perfect size for the VX6. I don't even leave the top buckled because I took off one of my phone straps and threw it on there. So if it falls out, it's not gonna fall. It's still within hand's reach. And I really like the way that the wrist strap attaches to this radio. Instead of just a little fold around loop, there's a little indented horseshoe inside the belt clip that the lanyard follows, so there's no sharp curves or anything like that to wear it out. And it comes directly at the top, which is perfect for this kind of setup. I think I'm going to find a Mount Lemon repeater. And then I also forgot to take my speakers out of my pack. So I have no music right now and the ground's wet, but I think I'm just going to put it on some dry snow and get some music going. Well, I guess I'm just going to do this whole video in portrait mode, or selfie mode, I guess. So it's already getting pretty warm. I've had to take my my mid layer off. And I had welding gloves on before. Now I just got my normal thin gloves. Another feature that I have installed in my VX6, since I guess this video is going to be mostly about the VX6, is I have the barometer chip in there, or what I like to call the bro mod, because whenever you have the barometer on, it just says bro at the top of the radio. So I call it the bro mod, and it also has the Mars mod. Two things that make no sense whatsoever in their naming scheme. So from the factory, I think it was about like 56 millibars or whatever off from the pressure. I was going to try to find somewhere where I could get it like calibrated, but I figured it would be, my calibration would only be like 10% off. And what I did is I just used the weather app for my location and saw how many millibars my location was, and I did some math, did that in the programming software, and it's pretty spot on now. One of the features it has is if it senses a dramatic drop in pressure, it should alert me. I have no idea if that works or not because I haven't put it to the test yet. And the last time we had rain down in town that wasn't on the schedule, I didn't have my radio on to see if maybe the pressure suddenly dropped. Other than that, it has a temperature sensor and an altitude sensor. But for whatever reason, when I calibrated the barometer, the temperature sensor doesn't work anymore and the altitude doesn't work anymore. But realistically, I just want the barometer to work. Actually, I haven't even tested it since then, because this morning as I was going out for a hike also, I put it on my motorcycle charger and it bricked itself. So I had to get into the manual. I did a factory reset. It still wouldn't start. It would come on to a steady tone. And the factory reset is these three buttons right here all at the same time. Just really hard to do. You got to use your whole thumb and a lot of pressure, and then turn it on while you're doing that, and then confirm it with the FW button. And then that didn't fix it. It cleared all the settings, or it did turn on after that. Before that, it was giving me a tone and then a reset, and then a tone and then a reset. It'd be in a boot loop. But I couldn't sync it with my computer. I couldn't program it. So I had to do the mode reset, as the manual says, which is just the VM and the mode button together while you turn it on. And then that goes straight into cloning mode, and then it worked. So I haven't checked since then to see if maybe that fixed my temperature and altitude problem. I'll check that real quick, and I guess I'll talk about it in the next clip. A lot of weird noises coming from up there. So for whatever reason, when it bricked itself and I reprogrammed it, it did fix the temperature and altitude issue. So it's reading pretty accurate. It's about 60 degrees outside right now. Up there is the Mount Bigelow summit. There's two major radio sites on this mountain. There's Mount Bigelow and Mount Lemon summits. There's 4 towers up there. You can probably only see 3 of them from here. Maybe 4 of them. And even though the town up there is called Summer Haven, I like to call it Radio Haven, because Mount Lemon is one of only 2 of the mountains in Arizona that have quad band repeaters on them. So Mount Lemmon has, I don't know if it's Mount Bigelow or Mount Lemmon Towers or just some house in Summerhaven that has the quad band repeater system. But they have all 4 bands, 6 meter, 2 meter, 222, and 70 centimeter. And then somewhere else in Arizona, there's another 6 meter repeater system. So it's kind of neat that Mount Lemmon, even though it doesn't have the same populace as Phoenix down in Tucson, and definitely hardly anything on the other side of the mountain, it's got like one of the best repeater systems in all of Arizona, not to mention the repeaters down in Tucson. And there's also a GRMS repeater up there. So yeah, pretty neat. Can I see them? Where are they? I'm leaning back so far. No, I can't. Oh, there they are. Oh, goddamn Candidians. I think those are the Candidians flying their Fatines. I actually stopped to take a photo and I heard them in the background, so I waited. This is a pretty beautiful spot here. Man, just another beautiful view out here. Like, I haven't really hiked much in the snow just because I don't want to deal with the snow. And on a motorcycle, some of the roads aren't completely dry by the time you get there. My original trail I was gonna go on had some snow cover on it, so I turned around and chose this one instead. But yeah, like the view is just amazing early in the morning, even though it's freezing out. Once you get moving, it's worth it. I also had another little revelation. This is the first time using this Wrangler vest on a hike. And normally I clip my phone with 2 lanyards between these 2, and 2 was a little excessive when I wasn't hiking, so I got down to the one I used the most. Put the other one on my radio so they match. And so I'm only using this one so I don't drop my phone. And I realized that this vest has a belly pocket down here. And so I can just leave it here and then tuck it in the pocket, because the problem I had before with 2 is the screen had to be facing upwards into the sun the entire time if I wanted to keep checking the GPS, and it would just keep hitting my stomach like 6,000 times, and I would have like a little red mark after the hike every time. So this is nice, just a singular lanyard connected here, goes right into the belly pocket, nice and secure, easy to access, and I only have to take it off the clip when I want to do a selfie that's not like right up on my face. Yeah. Well, I've never actually been up here before. I've been halfway up here. This is Incinerator Ridge or Incinerator Point. It's a road, but it's not a very well-maintained road. There's like nobody ever drives this road, but there's like all these campgrounds up here. It's actually a really nice camping spot if you could get to it. Even in the Bronco, I thought originally it was going to go up to Mount Bigelow up there where everybody else was camping. And then I realized pretty quickly that it wasn't. And that was getting pretty rocky and steep for even a Bronco. And a lot of people that go camping with us, they have cars and SUVs, or crossovers. So I don't think they'd be able to make it up this ridge. And there's also like fallen trees and stuff in the way. But yeah, I kind of want to go camping up here because there's a dozen spots. So you could get a large group up here, as long as all of them have like real SUVs or trucks, or even if they have cars, they can park somewhere and hitch a ride to the top, because it's a pretty steep road and there's trees that might need to be trimmed out of the way before the first person can even get through. But that's an easy fix. So yeah, Incinerator Point, Incinerator Ridge. Also, the Candidians have been flying around a lot. There's another one. I think they're at the wrong border. They might be a little bit lost. Man, I really need to get the snowshoes for my hiking poles. I'm not hiking in snowshoes and snow this mild, but these things just go straight to the bottom of snow drifts, and then I'm like hunching over. So I was kind of doing the little prodding technique every foot to see how soft the snowdrift was, because my boots were actually staying afloat. It's just the poles were going straight through to the gravel with very little resistance on these little stock terrain boots. I'd call them mud boots because they'll stay on the surface of mud, but snow they just poke all the way through. Got a nice little ridgeback view here. Everywhere I look, it's just down the mountainside. You got some cloud cover in the background. Back to the VX6. I have had this for about 3 weeks, and I've been off and on playing with it. So this isn't like an initial impression of it. This is kind of messing around with it at home, figuring out all of its features, and then trying to maybe make contacts later in the day. I think everybody's that's usually on the repeaters is sleeping right now or at work. But yeah, from at home, it's a very sensitive radio. Even with, I got the little smiley, the smallest antenna they have, which is 70 centimeters, and I can hit mount lemon with that, which power is power, but sensitivity is different across all radios. And this is a very, very sensitive radio. One of the buying factors of why I bought it is it's chirp compatible, but unless you absolutely hate yourself, you shouldn't be using chirp to program this radio. It's just so difficult, mainly trying to drag over all the channels. You can only have 6-digit channels. All my Baofeng pre-programs are 7 digits. So I spent like an accumulated like 2 to 3 hours renaming all the channels to 6 digits, and then it just wasn't having it for some reason. And then the memory bank system is kind of weird in chirp. So I ended up using whatever that company is that sells the yellow programming cable. Really nice thick programming cable, much nicer than the Baofeng ones. And plus obviously the K1s won't work on this because of the waterproof port. But man, their software is so worth it. It's like $25, which isn't too expensive. It's like a half price game. But it only works with one radio at a time. You got to pay a license per radio, but man, is that software nice. It has a whole bunch of automatic features. It's very, I don't even know how to describe it. It's a lot easier and more user friendly than chirp, surprisingly. And instead of spending time naming all the individual channels, you have two options. You can either name the channels automatically based on maybe, I think it auto summarizes what, it's city. You can automatically name all the channels by city, or you can automatically name them by call sign. So right now I'm trying all the channels just named by call sign, which isn't very helpful, but I figured in the future I would be making multiple memory banks based off of what city or area the repeater's in, and then you can name the actual memory banks in that one software I can't remember the name of. But the call signs are all right. It's nice to see two identical call signs, meaning that tower's the same tower, but it is also confusing. So I might go back to either naming it by city, or I need to go into all the memory banks, because you get like 9 of them in total, and name them different things, nine different regions in Arizona, or maybe even 8, and just leave one empty and leave those channels. Because right now I have them based off of band, because I figured I'd be scanning through each one based off of which antenna I have attached. But you can also store 9 memory banks of 100 channels and scan through all of them. So this radio effectively just has 900 continuous channels if you do it right. But yeah, so far liking the radio. I just haven't had any contacts except for monitoring that one emergency services channel. So I was just talking about how crazy good the sensitivity is on this radio. I just decided to start scanning so I could find another channel to monitor while I'm hiking. And I stumbled across one, and I'm like, ooh, that's a 2 meter. I can talk back to that one. And so I listened to them for an opening, and I was getting them in about 5 and 3. They were pretty buzzy, pretty staticky, but I could still understand entirely what they're saying. And so after they're done, I tried reaching them, and I couldn't reach them, even with this big 5/8 loaded antenna. Couldn't reach them. So I looked into it, looked up their frequency, looked at on Repeater Book, which I had saved the 100-mile radius from my house in Tucson, and the frequency was showing up, but it didn't have the same call sign. So I changed it. There it is again. You can see how clear it's coming through. It's coming through decently clear when they're talking, but I can't reach them. So I expanded my radius to 250 miles on Repeater Book, the app on my phone. And that tower is all the way on White Tanks Mountain in Phoenix. Phoenix is like 120 miles away. Way over there. So I can receive 120 miles on this radio with this crazy overkill antenna. But I mean, I can't talk back, so I don't say that's effective range, but yeah, the sensitivity on this is just absolutely insane. I'll have to get like an exact measurement. I don't have any data right now, so I can't pull up my maps. I think Repeater Book saves offline, but yeah, like Tucson to Phoenix, the top of Mount Lemmon. Now, granted, you have the curvature of the earth that kills line of sight, but Mount Lemmon, I think I'm at like 7,000 feet right now, and White Tank Mountain's maybe like 6,000 feet. So that gives you a pretty good distance. I could do the math right now if I could remember how to do it. I don't feel like doing it right now, but yeah. So I'm actually kind of giddy right now because I started scanning through looking for another local channel to monitor. And one thing I recommend with these smileys is you scan with the antenna down, and then when you extend it, you can talk further. So if you can definitely receive with it down, you might be able to talk with it up. So I had the 2-meter one on, and it was scanning through, and it was getting to the 70 centimeter band. And I heard something. I heard people talking. Same thing. They're coming through about 5 and 3. Really scratchy, staticky, but I could still understand them. And so I stopped it. I was listening, and I swapped to my 70 centimeter smiley, extended it to the 5/8 length. Or first I didn't. I couldn't talk back because I still had my 5/8 2-meter antenna on. Swapped over, extended it, and I got a reply. I know I got a reply, but I confirmed with him that he is connected to the Mesa repeater, and I have my tone set to the Mesa repeater. So I looked on my Apple Maps, and that's working just good enough to give me a distance, 96 miles. I know a lot of people on like the amateur radio Reddit and everything like to brag about like the furthest distance reached. The furthest I've ever done that I've confirmed was back when I only had GRMS. I had a Nagoya 771G on a GM15 Pro, and I reached a repeater another mountain range away, 40 miles away. And I thought that was crazy, but I'm reaching Mesa, granted on the top of Mount Lemmon, actually on the side of it. If I could see like a hawk, I could probably see Phoenix from here. But 96 miles on 70 centimeters, not just 2 meters, 70 centimeters. Because I was just thinking, it's like, I'm looking for a reason to buy the Aero Alaskan antenna because I want to talk to satellites. And yeah, 96 miles, which I guess in a way, well, wow, I just went off. I was getting on a topic. So the Yagi antennas, the portable ones, I thought about getting a portable one so I can basically beam anybody from the top of Mount Lemmon. And maybe I don't even need that. These Smiley 5/8 antennas are pretty crazy as long as you have the line of sight. But it makes sense that you would be able to reach 96 miles because space is 100 kilometers, or averages out to be 100 kilometers. It's just an easy number to remember. The ISS, an easy number to remember, is 250 kilometers. So that's, what is 250 divided by 5? 50 times 3. So that's, the ISS is about 150 miles above us. So if you can talk to the ISS, there's no reason why, as long as you're talking to another mountain that's high enough and you're on a mountain that's high enough, you should be able to theoretically reach 150 miles with an HT if you can talk to satellites. But yeah, that's like, I would highly recommend buying a VX6 or just any Japanese handheld really over a Baofeng, because I've had so many, like the Baofengs are neat, but compared to this, they're just toys as far as their sensitivity goes. And even though they might put out more watts on the meter, this is 5 watts, some say 4 watts. But I think the way that a lot of them are measuring it is they are, the meter doesn't care where those 8 watts are going that some of the Baofengs put out, whether it's a spurious emission or if it's on tone, or if it's on the carrier. It doesn't care. 8 watts is 8 watts, even if it's across the entire spectrum that meter is rated for. So I think a lot of the Baofengs are really just 4 watts or 3 watts, but there's so many spurs that it's measuring those spurs, and these are pretty spur free. They still obviously have spurs. That's just how radios work, but they're well below the decimal rating, which means a lot of the power, that 4 to 5 watts that this is rated for, is actually going towards the frequency that you want it to go towards. But yeah, just something crazy I had to bring up. Do another one of these shots, even though I already did one. So I just made another contact 68 miles away, Globe, Arizona. Hitting somebody. It was a linked repeater, so I was hitting somebody in New Mexico. Oh, look at the fog moving in. Oh shit, the clouds. I've been staring at my phone and my radio this whole time. I'm getting surrounded by clouds. But yeah, 68 miles away on 2 meters. Hitting the Globe repeater. I confirmed through the call sign, because I do have all the channel names based on call signs. And then when you hold down the monitor button, you can see what frequency is. So I looked up K7 ear, which is a whole network in Arizona. But they're all their repeaters are different frequencies. So I was definitely hitting the one in Globe and talking to someone in New Mexico, because it's a linked, I forget what ear means. It's something amateur radio network or whatever. Eastern Arizona Amateur Radio Network. So that's why it was New Mexico, but internet linked to him. But realistically, I was hitting 68 miles on a mountaintop with a handheld. I thought Globe was further away, but I guess it's closer than Phoenix. But I was really hoping it would be like 120 miles or something crazy like that. But yeah, I'm going to get back to hiking, because I've been standing here for like the past half an hour playing with the radio, and I'm getting surrounded by clouds. That'd be kind of cool. That rock face looks familiar. It's the other side of San Pedro Peak. I've done that trail before. Tried to backpack that one. Ended up sliding downhill the entire night. Yeah, pretty neat view. One thing that sucks about transition lenses is it's dark out here because of the cloud cover, but there must be enough UV light scattering around that they're like in full dark mode. And it's like nighttime out here right now, or it seems like it. It's just unnecessarily dark, and then it's normal, and I take it off because there's UV light still getting through the clouds. Also, on another radio side note, is I was saying earlier the altitude fixed itself, because before it was saying like a negative 100 something feet, but the map is showing, which is a known altitude because it's a map, about 8,000 feet. And it says I'm at like 4,500 feet. So the altitude's not very trustworthy on this. Always go by maps, just because maps don't change. Instruments that you carry can change. Barometers, though, obviously that's always changing, and it's not on a map. So I'm really hoping the barometer thing works on this, because there's one instance where I did wish I had it, where the weather was showing clear, and then I got caught in a windstorm followed by, well, actually, no, it didn't rain that day. It was just a massive windstorm, which a low pressure drop would have predicted something like that. Maybe not rain, but definitely wind picking up. A low pressure drop will pick that up. Well, it's almost noon. I usually like to get here as early as possible and turn back at noon, just in case shit hits the fan. I can maybe get out before sunset. But it almost looks like I can take a trail to the top of that mountain, and I'll have my lunch up there and turn around. And I definitely want to hike down Incinerator Road and take a little bit of the highway back, because I'm curious what the condition is on that because I really want to go camping there. Man, I'd love to zoom on this camera. Well, I made it. I think that's the ridge where I had a little backpacking trip. And I kept sliding downhill at night on the San Pedro Vista Loop. I'm at the top of the rock face. There's also a road down there. I didn't even know you could see this rock face from the road. Yeah, I think I'm gonna make this my midpoint, eat my lunch, hike back, take Incinerator Road back down, and take a little bit of a road hike back to my bike. Call it a day. I also got a package I gotta return to Amazon today. So yeah, I'm gonna be home before like maybe 6 o'clock. I think the instructions are telling me to lean this on a rock or something. You think that's good enough? So, I'm just here eating, I'm recharging, all of my devices start recharging. I was actually getting a low battery warning on this, even though I started at 8.3 volts. Luckily, I found this little off-brand device that takes USB power and charges the radio with it using this magic little box. Now, I put gaff tape around it because it's a $20 Amazon item, and it felt like it was very brittle plastic. So just a little shock absorption, and if it cracks, it'll hold together. But there's a few things that may or may not be going on in here. Converting DC 5 volt to DC 12 volt is actually far more difficult than you think. The way I think they're doing it is they're using a inverter to invert it into AC voltage. They're using a transformer from there to step it up to 12 volts, because you can't transform DC voltage, but you can transform AC voltage. And then you have a full bridge rectifier here to turn it back into DC to charge the radio. Now, all your USB-A devices, your USB 2.0 USB-A devices, have a maximum standard of 2.4 amps and 5 volts, which means 12 watts. And if you do the math, 1 amp at 12 volts is also 12 watts. So you can actually charge this at the normal rate with a normal USB, as long as there's no heat loss in this. Realistically, you're probably charging 10 watts because there's going to be a little bit of losses. There's other ways to do it, like how the spark on a gasoline engine works. Is it always stays DC voltage, but it does go through a transformer, the coil, and it can only charge once, and then it's at maximum saturation, just like if you've ever dealt with inductors. Or, I don't know, would it be an inductor or capacitor? Either way, it gets a full charge, and then that's it. It has to dump in order to actually maximize the voltage. So gasoline engines, what they do is they charge the coil in such a fraction of a second, but that's fine, because then a cylinder wants that spark and it dumps it, and then the circuit closes again and it charges real fast. So you're actually creating half of an AC wave in a gasoline spark engine. And it could also be doing something like that. It could have a capacitor in here and an inductor coil, and it quickly charges up, and then in a fraction of a second, like maybe every 1 to 10 milliseconds, it discharges, and then it half bridge rectifies it on the other side to bring it back to DC, since it was only half an AC wave. I don't know exactly how it's working in here. I don't feel like buying another one to break it open because it was heat sealed. This is all heat sealed together. Maybe, I don't know. If I see one on sale, used like new or something like that on Amazon, I might buy it just to break it open, because I'm really curious how they're converting DC, a lower DC to higher DC with just this little tiny lightweight box. So I'm kind of just waiting for my phone to get to 80% charge, and also charging the radio while I'm sitting here. Actually, I'll turn it off. Maybe it'll charge faster. Actually, I think it has a charge bar. Otherwise, if you want an exact voltage, in that one radio programming software that I can't ever remember the name of, you can adjust the P button to do whatever you want. Like literally you can choose from like 100 things to do. I set it to the DC voltage. Oh, it's plugged in right now. But you can see, yeah, this USB thing's putting out 11.7 volts. Also, if you have it connected to like a vehicle. But normally I would say what the internal battery is. I don't feel like unplugging it right now. But my radio's got about half a battery, which I guess is good enough. I don't know why I tapped the radio to focus the camera. Another thing with these Smiley antennas, some modifications I made is obviously I heat shrinked the rest of the silver, so it's a little more muted, matches the radio better. But they came with these 3D printed flanges that probably work fine for most radios. They're more of a cone shape from top to bottom. But with the VX6, you got this little waterproof grommet, and I really wanted it to squish evenly. Actually, take it off. Just camera rolling. But you can see down in here, there's a little nub gasket, or whatever you want to call it, a little tiny ring sticking up, and that's your waterproofing. Squish that and you're good to go. So what I did is I used some calipers and got exact measurements and made sure that matched the inner diameter absolutely perfectly, and the shelf is the exact depth of that inner race and the outer ring. So then it squishes that inner thing evenly at the same time that it squishes the outer one. So it should be far more waterproof than what they were providing. And I like the matte green. I honestly want to get like a Yaesu gold color, like a matte gold eventually. And then I can get a new adapter, because this is completely glued on to their adapter. So then I only have to hold the outside of this and it's not going to spin on the inside. And then swap to a matching wrist strap, because I like everything to match like that. Another nice thing with the Smileys is swapping antennas all the time can kind of wear out your SMA connector. I'll put this down for a second. Nice and tight. But as long as you're using theirs, you're only going to wear out their threaded adapter as long as you leave this part on. So everything I have for this radio uses this adapter, so I can let the SMA adapter take a break from constantly being unscrewed. If this were just a dual band antenna, a dual band radio, I would just use a signal stick, honestly. I still like the signal stick as my all-around best balanced antenna. Yeah. Also, crap, I just looked up the name of this peak right here. Barnum Rock or something that I'm standing on. You can also see the gem of Mount Lemmon. It's actually got a lake at 7,000 feet on top of it, just barely peeking over there. And not a lot of people even realize there's a lake up here in the mountains. Just for reference, like, that's the Sky Highway over there that seems like you're on the top of the world. And then there's just a lake chilling in the middle of the mountains at 7,000 feet. This is about 8,000 feet up here, Barnum Rock. Of course, now the clouds have moved in again. Over there's Bigelow Peak. It's like 8,500 feet. And then way over there is the Mount Lemmon Peak. I don't know where it's at because the clouds are moving in. That's just over 9,000 feet. I can't hit the zoom. No, my thumb is cold. Whatever. Well, there's a much better view of the lake. This is about where I was making those radio contacts. Man, I can see the shimmer on the water from here. This is about what it looks like to my eyes. I love this camera. That's about as wide as my eyes can see. Huh. I wonder what that is out there. The map shows a gated road, and it's about at 7,700 feet. I can only imagine it's like the last possible place they could put a helipad, maybe, for emergency supplies and extractions. Then again, like,
can most helicopters fly 7,700 feet? Like, I mean, obviously it can, but it's different in the mountains. There's different safety protocols or whatever. And it would just take forever to climb up to 77 in a helicopter, I'd imagine. I think I could still fly to like 10,000 easily. Yeah. Some weird random patch. Gaia Maps isn't showing anything in particular, just a road leading up to it and a gate that blocks off the road. Let's walk and talk and try out this sport mode. It always looks shaky in the camera, but I guess in post it's supposed to look better? I don't know. These boots are not waterproof. Luckily I'm wearing wool socks, but my right one I can feel a little bit of moisture coming through the left side. So this is the Incinerator Road. Behind me is I showed it earlier, there's the Incinerator Ridge. Apparently that's not Incinerator Peak, that's further up the trail, just to make it more confusing. But it looks like there's a fallen tree here. I guess if we ever did like a group camp or whatever, if I just come up here with a handsaw and take care of that. If I just cut it up there, whatever's left, and then roll it down the hill. This road's not as bad as I remember it, unless there's just a bad part. I remember it being like nothing but ruts and rocks. This is a totally viable road. 3.5 miles. Maybe somebody previously rutted it up and they packed it back down or filled it in. Because I remember barely wanting to even drive the Bronco up here before I realized that this road doesn't cut over to Mount Bigelow. Oh, there's a good camping spot down there. There's probably plenty of good camping spots. Problem is, when we do big group camps at work, there's one or two people that want to bring a trailer. So that kind of determines where we're camping. Most everybody else just has tents. That would be a great group camping spot. And nobody ever uses this road because I think it was previously really bad. And it's not Mount Bigelow, but it's nice and secluded here. Shouldn't have any wind problems overnight like Mount Bigelow does. I don't know how the weather is here. It rapidly changes up there because it's on a ridge. It's on the side of a ridge. Yeah, this is a lot better than I remember. Of course, that was like 2 or 3 years ago, the last time I came up this road. I could almost ride my motorcycle up this if the ground was dry, even with street tires. Yeah, you could totally get a trailer in there. Huh. Maybe I'll explore this road this summer. Maybe go camping up here this summer. I just hate backpacking by myself because that one time I'm pretty sure there was something inspecting my camp at night. I don't know if it was predator or prey though. And that got me thinking, it's like, I don't want to wake up to a bear tearing into my tent and I have exactly 5 seconds to find my gun somewhere. And even then, it's just a 40. I kind of want a 10 mil. I don't know how much stopping power 15 rounds of 40 has. My 15 round mag has the critical duty, so they're higher velocity, lighter bullet, and then the critical defense, the critical duties, a heavier bullet, lower velocity. That's supposed to be more for police use and against animals because it can stay more stable as it passes through objects because of the heavier bullet. But a 10 mil, that would be a hiker's defense pistol. I just don't feel like spending $600 on a hiking accessory, even though I kind of already done that. But yeah, my 20 round mag has the Hornady animal defense rounds or whatever the fuck they want to call it, which is pretty much the same as the critical duty minus the silicone tip inside it. Yeah, Incinerator Road. So I do think this was like really rocky before because I'm hiking along and I see marks on these rocks. Like here's a really good example. I think like a really heavy duty grader came in and just completely pulverized down these rocks. Because yeah, I remember this being a nasty road. It doesn't look like that anymore. I don't know if I hear a cow or people talking. Yeah, I also don't remember the road being this wide. Unless I'm thinking of an entirely different road, but this was almost like a fucking Jeep trail on the way up here. So I'm glad I took the easy route back and walked that road because, granted, it's closed until like March for winter conditions. That just shows me that like they dramatically improved that road and it's actually worth camping up there now.